From the HBA Podcast Studio in New York City, welcome to The Medium Rules. I'm Alan Baldachin. I'm joined today in the HBA Podcast Studio by Jasper Malcolmson. Jasper is probably best known as the founder and CEO of the local offers business Bloomspot, sold to Chase in 2013. Jasper's new startup is Skylight, a digitally native home renovation platform which allows homeowners to design, bid, project manage, and pay for home renovations all through Skylight's online toolset. Most notably, once a homeowner's construction budget is locked, homeowners are protected from cost overruns through Skylight's innovative fully fixed pricing guarantee. We'll talk to Jasper about competing in the local offer space, his experience selling to Chase, and about the ambitions and challenges of Skylight in the field of construction tech. So Jasper, thanks very much for being on The Medium Rules. Looking forward to what I think will be a fascinating conversation. Let's get started. So let's start at the start of your experience in Silicon Valley. You were working in the 90s in New York City, doing private equity, and you decided to decamp, head out to San Francisco and join Yahoo. Tell me about that decision, your early days at Yahoo, what it was like there in the 90s. Kind of what you took on there and how that job evolved.
Yeah. So there was a time when Yahoo was on top.
There was a time.
It's interesting to look back at the historic periods of different companies and how those companies sort of evolved through periods, right? So if we cast our minds back to the period, of the internet starting. And then it first consolidating around, these broader portals that previous to search became aggregations of multiple different content components across multiple different topics to allow customers to effectively navigate within a known world, right? The interesting thing is we basically, if you look at it across 25 years, gone through a world where people operated within these sort of consolidated, framed, closed garden experiences like Yahoo. Then Google smashed those apart with search, right? And then they've been effectively, in some ways, reframed back again with places like Facebook to put you back into a safe, organized garden. Mm-hmm. But through the period of 2000, after the downturns of the 2000s, then we had a period where Yahoo in particular really took off between 2001 and it went through its sort of apex years from about 2002 to about 2007. And
was that when Jerry came back to run the shop? Who was running Yahoo at that time?
That was before Jerry. Jerry actually only came back quite after Yahoo had begun its downturn.
Okay.
Actually. So the company was being run at that time by Terry Semel, who was a media CEO. I don't think anyone has ever said that Terry was the person who is responsible for Yahoo's success. I think that's a consensus view. But nonetheless, the factors were very positive for Yahoo during those years. So internet growth was very rapid. Monetization came back, particularly graphical media monetization was actually, brand-oriented graphical media monetization was performing extremely strongly through that period. So Yahoo grew about $1 billion graphical media business, much more significantly on the brand side than the performance side. Okay. So, at that time through 2001 to 2004, DoubleClick was commanding the more performance-oriented graphical media market, and Yahoo was commanding the brand-oriented graphical media market that was actually performing really well. Like franchises like Automobile, for example, were $500 or $700 million branded graphical media franchises. So Google had yet to go public in 2004. So during that period, Yahoo was about 14% of total internet usage from a consumer perspective, and a large part, a higher percentage, maybe 20% of entire U.S. internet monetization. And search was growing, but hadn't yet really risen to the top. And Yahoo search built on Ink2Me, and people forget that, Ink2Me was the assets, the early stage assets that Yahoo had bought were actually very powerful in search, including patents related to search monetization that Yahoo owned. People forget that Google actually paid Yahoo for its patents related to the ability to run AdWords, $1 billion on the day that Google went public. I happened to be in the offices of Yahoo's lawyers when we received the paperwork to get paid $1 billion because Yahoo owned the patents to do search monetization. So Yahoo was a very, very powerful company at that point. Google was yet to go public, and I joined the company at a time that it was hiring massively. And through that period, Yahoo accumulated a really enormous number of extremely talented people through that period that went on to do many, many things. And many of the leaders across Yahoo now are people that worked at Google, whether it's my boss Jeff Weiner, who ran LinkedIn for a long time, is considered one of the best internet CEOs there is. The unfortunately deceased Dave Goldberg, Sheryl Sandberg's husband, who was acquired into Yahoo, but a major, incredible leader of SurveyMonkey, you look at individuals like Katrina, or the current leader of Slack. All those people were at Yahoo, right? So it really wasn't a hotbed of incredible talent,
innovation, and then Google comes in, sort of kills the franchise, and then you start to see an exodus. What's that sort of story, your personal journey there?
Yeah, and I'm always fascinated by the macro business trends that were occurring. So,
as well.
So I joined Yahoo Travel, and in business development, professional, and then went on to product and GM, and then I ended up running Yahoo's commerce business unit, which was shopping, travel, real estate, local, personal maps. So we effectively had a property in each one of the major commerce verticals, and it was an incredible vantage point to see the development, looking across 6 different commerce verticals, the vantage point of the nature of internet commerce and how it was working. So what were the macro? So that was incredible. From the period of 2004, let's say 2007, all of our commerce business units grew 3x during that period. 3x. We would be looking down in the periods of 2005, and we would forecast up the next quarter, and we would get to the quarter, and we would have blown our numbers, away by 30% or 40%.
And was that growth a function at that time principally of just more people getting onto high speed? I mean, the mobile devices were just starting at that point.
It was web usage.
It was web usage.
It was just there were 2 factors. The primary factor that was driving growth in 2003 to 2006, for example, was just massive increased personal use of the web product. And for Yahoo, people, just traffic volume to the front page of Yahoo growing dramatically. Then what started to happen in later 2005 and growing towards 2007 is a remarkable thing. People started to, in greater and greater numbers, go from going to the front page of Yahoo or AOL to discovering this thing, search, and saying, wow,
I can go straight to the...
I could just all of a sudden have a search box as my homepage and just type in search, a search query, and then take whatever the top search. Now, it turned out that that we at Yahoo Travel, amongst a number of other businesses, were the first people, and I will attribute this to my business partner and great friend Ashish Boldua, who was my engineering partner. He understood search engine optimization before anyone else did, and he understood in 2002 that based on the way that Google was ranking search, which was heavily focused on link density and the quality of your links, which was of course Google's original search ranking, special sauce, which has softened over the years, but was, dominated their algorithms. If you could generate millions of links, not just some, millions of links,
you were rising to the top.
Then you would get to the very top. And so what we did at the time is we created products that naturally generated massive numbers of links. So we created products such as we allowed hotels, small bed and breakfasts and so on, we allowed users to create content stories about their experiences, which had no direct monetization value to us. But we created products, it was called Trip Planner, to allow them to create these personalized stories about their trips with amazing editorial and photographs. And then we allowed partners that were described in these trips, whether it's a park or a small hotel or a restaurant, to place badges on their websites linking to these trips that would be hosted on Yahoo Travel, and saying, hey, look at this great trip on Yahoo Travel that's describing our experience. We built 3.5 million links in 2 years around this product. And as a result of which, we were the top link on Google. After that time, once the amount of energy Ashish and I left and various people, and over time, TripAdvisor adopted these techniques and passed us. For a long time, we were actually way ahead of TripAdvisor and the number one search result. Anyway, to bring it back to these macro trends, what happened to Yahoo between 2006 and 2008 was the movement of traffic from these consolidated walled gardens into people then using the search box as their starting place. And we were fortunately on top of this before a lot of other properties at Yahoo. And I remember us sitting down with our team, and everyone was so inclined to think about, at that time, their homepage as the starting place for the customer's experience. And we put a giant Google search box on a presentation page in front of them and said, this is your homepage. And this was very controversial within Yahoo to describe to your entire team that the Google search box was the homepage. But
did anyone get up and say, I'm going to go work for Google right now? I see the future.
Yeah. And this was the macro trend that changed things. Now, it's an open experience whether, and that trend dominated, and if we look at the macro traffic acquisition trends, right? People were getting their traffic through, from 1998 through 2006. Businesses were getting their traffic by striking these business development deals with the likes of AOL or Yahoo. With portals. So that, portal marketing, everyone would talk about this, right? Through, 2005, to effectively, 2011, it was all about SEO, and of course, the paid version in SEM. But SEO was really making the money. For properties like ours, we converted them all to SEO properties. We gave up on the Yahoo homepage. We would buy traffic from Google in order to get volume, but all of our money making would come from SEO, because basically SEM, paying for Google for your traffic, is always in a competitive business vertical like shopping or travel, is always going to be a break-even endeavor, because Google's algorithms at optimizing their marketplace forces traffic buyers to bid right up to the margin, the actual time, absolute squeezing last incremental contribution dollar. And they're so smart in constructing the marketplace to force you to bid up to the last dollar. And also because the marketplaces are extremely competitive, you try to buy out onto the tail to find places where the marketplace is less competitive. But as the marketplace mature, Google gets better at rematching ads from the head back to the tail. They've squeezed out. You can't make, unless you have some bizarre advantage, you're not going to make money. So it's just a way. But anyway, so that's what the business models became in that period. They became, search engine marketing, SEM, to drive volume, and then SEO to make you money. Of course, there have been several new macro trends. One, then there's mobile, right, which of course is a completely different traffic acquisition and monetization model, and then Facebook itself.
Yeah. So 2009-ish.
Yes.
And I was obviously on this journey with you. You started Bloomspot.
Yeah.
Which was in its conception, a daily deals company. It was in that category.
Yes.
And it was you and Ashish. You mentioned your good friend and partner at Yahoo. And he was your engineer, and you were the business guy. What were you seeing there that sort of made you jump and want to take this on?
Yeah. So I'm just going to take that back to the previous conversation in terms of like macro trends around monetization and traffic acquisition, which any entrepreneur or internet business, you're always going to think, where do you get your people? Where do you get your buyers? It's the central part of any business model. So we were attuned to the idea that at any given time, you needed to see the next wave of traffic availability, and your opportunity at any given time to make money or to grow a business is to jump on the next wave of traffic availability before anyone else does, because you go through 2 to 3 year trends where a new source or method to acquire traffic emerges. There's temporarily low prices and availability in that new channel. And then over time, people get smart and then they close that. So, that macro trend happened in terms of buying out portal deals, those opportunities closed, the traffic switched, then that opportunity emerged on search engine optimization. We grabbed that, once those trends go, it becomes nearly impossible to assail those incumbents that have locked themselves into those channels, or you get search engine marketing where they become so busy, they become commoditized. At that time, Facebook was growing insanely quickly, and most people were not taking advantage of Facebook ads. And we started to buy, in our spare time on weekends, we started to run little tests buying Facebook ads.
You and Ashish,
yes,
in your spare time.
This is what we would do in our spare time.
With no business model in mind. You guys were just sort of starting to test.
We started to test, and we effectively had a theory, which is we'll run 1 million test ads on this new incredible traffic source, and whatever gets the best click through, we'll start a business in that area. Okay, so we just started running ads. Because we were watching how traffic moved, we immediately saw that this was an area of just massive traffic growth and opportunity. Very few people were taking advantage of it. The other thing that we recognized was the nature of the type of product that would have to be sold on Facebook, which is, let's stand back and talk about a very simple principle. There are 2 types of consumers in 2 types of mindsets. There is an intent mindset, where a consumer is searching in the mindset that their attention and mental focus is on purchasing a specific product at a moment. I want to, talk about my space, get a home renovation, and I got up on Saturday morning to look for a home renovation provider.
That's my chore that morning.
That's my chore. Yeah. And when consumers are in that mode, they see nothing else. The rest of the world is blank to them. And in that type of product, search is an extremely powerful product, because the person typically does a search query and then they're directly looking. So if you have an intent-based, a product that is best sold into an intent-oriented consumer that is in an overt search mode for your product, you should be using search. Then there's discovery. Many products, there are a whole other class of products where the consumer doesn't, and the most typical thing that we think about is like purchasing, fashion items, right? I mean, or discovery commerce, right? So not all fashion works this way, but if you look at end caps, right, in the retail environment, for consumers that are seeing a deal and discovering it, going, wow, that's something I want to buy. So we said, hey, Facebook, where consumers are browsing, they're not there with commercial intent or an orientation to purchase. The type of product that is best sold and take advantage of this massive, incredibly cheap inventory would have to have the following characteristics. It would have to have a product that could be bought by a customer at any given time, regardless of their specific intent, that is oriented towards a discovery purchase. And the fundamental characteristics is that it has to have a broad-based appeal, have to be something that's like interesting and could be purchased by a consumer that is in a social mode, and it has to be supported. Discovery commerce is almost always driven by deals. Like if you walk down Madison Avenue, you see beautiful displays and you see promotional because you're trying to get someone to divert their attention from walking down the street to walking into the store and making a purchase. So on the combination of those theories, we came up with local deals, and that's how we ended up entering the marketplace. We actually Groupon was actually not there yet. The method we chose to start was by using search algorithms to look across available inventory of interesting deals in other places
and surface them in ads, on landing pages connected with ads on Facebook, and that's how we started.
And by the way, I actually still think that's a great idea.
And as I recall, the original name of the company was Value Scout. Bloomspot was Value Scout.
Good concept, bad name.
But it's very descriptive of what you're talking about.
Yeah,
it's sort of search oriented.
Yeah. Now the problem with that name is that discovery brands, it's a functional description.
Yes.
It's a functional description.
It's not lighting your imagination.
Generally that's not how discovery works. You don't walk down Madison Avenue and the stores on Madison Avenue don't say buy beautiful fashion at deep discounts co. Right?
Yeah.
Because that doesn't inspire discovery oriented buyers. But that was the concept. What ended up happening was that we started to hear about, both on the travel side, companies buying and purchasing and originating their own inventory, as well as Groupon. We became interested in the idea. We did not realize that it was going to become as crowded and hectic as it was, and started into it. It then became we got a lot of momentum, and I think we competed very well in a very good space, and we weren't far enough ahead as Living Social and Groupon was. Turned out that the way that sector was built is that it really was only going to support one provider. And interestingly, Groupon has a decent, stable business today.
Yeah.
Because despite all the negative hysteria at that point, saying this is a terrible business, it's a coupon business, and coupon businesses have and always will exist. And it's a logical business, and it has a good, not amazing, but solid business that will be there for a long time, fueled by more typical classic, coupon-oriented discount buyers that have been buying coupons and discounts for, hundreds of years, those typical verticals. In light of that, we were doing well, but not well enough, and we wanted to address some of the problems in that business. And so we decided that what the core problem in the business is that you really needed to understand for your advertiser, not just the immediate behavior of the consumer, which was to buy that discount at the time, but to understand whether that consumer became a true repeat user. In other words, to understand, to get in and participate in the entirety of the commerce flow over a period of time to understand whether that consumer became a repeat user. By the way, I'm describing this not just what we did at Bloomspot, but what became a macro trend.
Yes, and I was going to say...
this is like the next in the macro trends of business models.
And I was going to say that, you guys, and I think I'd be interested to hear you comment about how your Yahoo training came into play, because Bloomspot became a kind of an early data-driven company where you were tracking buyer behavior and buyer characteristics, consumer characteristics, to, in effect, drive deals. In effect, it was an early predictive analytics model. Can you talk about that? Maybe that's where you're going.
Sure.
I think that's such an interesting.
So what we did is that the general Groupon model was: I sell you a discount, you visit a place at a discount, you tell your restaurant or spa, hey, this is great that you gave away a discount, because even though you might have lost money on the first customer visit, these people are going to come back, so it's great. And of course, the negative rap on this business sector was these are discounted-oriented shoppers that only buy on discounts, and they're going to come once to get the steep discount, and they'll never return and come back and pay full price. And in absence of any method in order to track this, this was widely disputed, right? And also from the merchant's perspective, and without an incentive method to get the consumer to return, quality merchants became increasingly concerned that they were just giving away these discounts with no loyalty effect, and that was making quality merchants hesitant to participate in the Groupon model, as well as Groupon's bad branding, but we'll leave that aside. So our idea was, let's link the purchase by, let's get trackability to the consumer's ultimate true loyalty and provide an incentive by linking the discount to the customer's credit card and using that, to when the customer came and spent, see whether they spent beyond the discount, to see whether they were a larger spender in the first visit, give that consumer incentives to return back for additional visits by offering them card-linked offers if they return back to that merchant, which also facilitated ongoing loyalty marketing for that merchant. And let's give consumers even additional incentives if they return back to the merchant that they originally visited on the discount. And then finally, for consumers that show a history of returning back to that merchant, let's give them even better first deals. So it effectively became a network where the consumer proposition was, we'll give you the right to visit a merchant on a discount once, but your obligation is to treat that discount with respect, spend well when you're there, and come back, and you will only begin continued access to these special treats if you demonstrate you're someone who treats this as an invitation to be taken seriously, as an invitation to get to know this merchant. And you need to demonstrate that by returning back. And literally our best deals we would hold back for customers that had generated and demonstrated loyalty behavior, and they would get special classifications and so on. So it was a very cool twist on the Groupon model. And as a result of which, JP Chase, and in particular Chase credit card, that was looking to launch offers associated with their credit card product, was looking around in that world for a team and a technology that had developed expertise, not just in the daily deals world, but linking that model to the power of the credit card, and became very interested in us and ultimately acquired us.
Let me back you up though. Prior to the Chase acquisition, what were some of the macro headwinds working against you? Was it ultimately customer acquisition became so expensive? Was it the ground game of getting more and more merchants and more offers, and just how kind of labor intensive that process was? What were some of those?
And I'm going to give it the pejorative name of the daily deals business. The daily deals business, first there were just the fact that it wasn't that hard to enter meant there were just a massive number of participants. While consumers initially became very excited with the sector, and a lot of individuals that would typically not use deals were using the product, that started to diminish. It was a capital intensive business because you had to have large local sales forces. And therefore it's a business that naturally, gravitates towards, a single provider, because you have to have so much local sales that you really need an enormous amount. You need to consolidate the audience around, a small number or ultimately one provider in order to just get enough purchases to justify a local sales team. So even though we had done very well, raised a bunch of money, and so on, we felt the pressure of modifying our model, and ultimately being part of JP Chase was great.
And So you joined Chase. You
Yes.
joined Chase Payments, basically. You were there for 3 years. What were some of the key kind of learnings and trends and participation during that experience? What do you take away from that?
I'm going to frame. So at Chase, I ended up, in addition to the offers business, I ended up becoming head of product for Chase Payment Tech. And Chase Payment Tech is quietly the largest merchant acquirer, the largest, effectively, payments provider in the United States. Yeah. So I'm just going to qualify that statement. First Data operates under a combination of sort of individual separate entities, one associated with Citibank, one associated with Wells, and so on. They're separate entities. In terms of a single entity payment provider, Chase Payment Tech is the largest in the United States. It processes about $1 trillion of transactions a year, which is about 14% of the U.S. economy, and it processes the vast majority of e-commerce transactions. So the vast majority, this is little known, the vast majority of e-commerce transactions. People go, what about Stripe or Square? By the way, Payment Tech is the back end of Square. So when you say Square, you really mean Chase. Most people don't realize that. So it's Stripe is a front end sitting in front of Chase. So all the transactions from Amazon and Yahoo and Netflix and Google, they all flow through Chase.
I must say I would not have been aware of that. Is that the case also with Shopify?
Shopify the back end of Shopify is actually running through First Data.
Okay.
But behind any front end are the pipes effectively that are taking those transactions and then routing them off to the various networks. And for the vast majority of internet transactions on the internet, you're using Chase Payment Tech. Most people don't know. It's a fascinating thing, isn't it? So I was sitting there responsible for product for all these systems. It's you get more insight into what's really going on e-commerce. Payment Tech, and I should note they're extremely confidential with their data, but they in a confidential way that they never break, do have an incredible insight with respect to exactly what's going on. So let's go to macro trends, right, that I was seeing there and I'd seen before. Macro trends in terms of internet monetization and commerce. What I was participating at Yahoo and at Google is what I refer to as the PPC economy, right? The PPC economy is where front ends of any sort, whether they're Google or whether they're these partnerships like Yahoo, they're selling clicks, right? Google sells clicks, and they sell it in a price per click. Even when we were at Yahoo Shopping, real estate, we were selling clicks. The PPC economy was effectively the economy. Even graphical media ads, they're effectively, other than the brand advertisers that double click, they're selling clicks, and that dominated the vast, overwhelming majority of commerce. From the inception of the internet, basically, to running through, up until let's say 2012 and 13. And generally, what happened is internet properties were these thin front ends, right, that produced that had some content and some pictures and organized underlying providers, whether those were shopping providers or hotels or airlines or local restaurants, et cetera, et cetera. And what started to happen is that businesses said, that's a pretty low value add model, right? Let's describe one specific case, VRBO. Okay, VRBO was around for years, and they were a thin front end for local lodging, right? And people clicked and they saw an ad, they saw some reviews, and they clicked on it. And some very smart guys at a little company at Airbnb said, separate from their Airbnb's innovation about someone sleeping on a couch, I would say the real innovation is they said, let's go down and build a software platform, not operate on a PPC economy, but build an entire software platform and encase that local inventory in a powerful software program that provided payments. And as a function of payments, not just payments, but along with payments, and this is something that I learned from participating in the payments field, a payment system is not just a facilitator of payments. It also is a dispute resolution system. It is protecting the transaction, often for both the buyer and the seller. So, in any payments model, at the center of any credit card model is a method by which you can protect the customer around getting your money back, right? And also it's a method for the seller to make sure that they're going to get their money. So the Airbnb guy said, hey, let's not just click people through. Let's build an entire experience that wraps this inventory to make the inventory trustworthy. Let's insure the seller. Insure the seller for $1 million. Like, whoever thought about insuring the local seller of a transaction, right? But genius, because people would not bring their inventory online unless the seller was insured, right? One of Airbnb's massive innovation. Let's effectively, go through an incredible amount to protect the buyer around the safety and trustworthiness of that inventory. Let's get involved in the transaction to protect people on both sides. Let's have people that call homeowners and check that they're, they're okay, et cetera, et cetera. And because in that business, the previous model of the VRBO user landing on the site, often sites didn't have very good systems for managing and displaying their inventory to the consumer. So the consumer had to sit and click through all those links and land and search around and call the place and try to find out what was available. Airbnb created systems for all that small disorganized inventory to bring forward their inventory availability and consolidate into a single display to allow the consumer to effectively understand all that local inventory. That took a huge amount of work. So effectively the genius was, we're going to leave the PPC, and our business model is no longer going to be selling a click. We're going to facilitate the transaction for the consumer and the buyer, and then we're going to take a portion of that transaction, okay? They left the PPC economy, right? By the way, this is what's changed commerce. Uber, exactly the same massive innovation, right? What's the innovation of Uber? They took the local cab driver and they said, we're going to wrap that entire experience in software. We're going to manage the transaction. We're going to guarantee the buyer's experience. We're going to guarantee the seller's experience. We're going to protect people around that inventory. We're going to brand it all so people say that, that even though they're using massive amounts of inventory on the ground, they're wrapping it in such a strong software layer that the consumer feels like they're actually making a purchase from that brand new company, even though all the local inventory is still in its individual local chaos. And so I think this has been the macro level commerce trend. Obviously the other incredible example has been Amazon, right? Unlike, let's say, our Chinese models that have stayed in, PPC and the Alibaba models, Amazon has equally said, I'm not in the PPC business. I am creating a big, solid software block that completely manages every component of the transaction. And they've basically stolen commerce, the commerce search away from Google, right? Yeah. So that's the most massive vision. So I think any commerce entrepreneur has rethought their business models.
So let's take that in.
And by the way, the business model to execute this from a payments perspective, the underlying classification from a payments model perspective is called a payments facilitation model. It's which is called PPP. That's how it's classified from a legal payments perspective. And Chase was the #1 provider of payments facilitation services to allow a third party to effectively act as a bank and own that payment facilitation model And we were the #1 provider of payment facilitation services. So we were the back end.
So you're in perfect
to
position to
everyone,
dominate this new trend.
And mobile, this was going on with Grubhub and,
Sure.
like in every vertical across, and for Airbnb, and we were the payments facilitator for Uber. We were literally powering every one of these models, right? And I found myself as the person running payments for Chase and effectively running payments for the internet, more or less, right? It was incredible. I was basically running, payments piping for the internet, seeing this go on just a massive scale, right? So anyway, so that is what fueled my thinking as I went forward. And that's, I don't think people talk about this. This is the dominant trend in that has driven the entire internet.
So fast forward to 2000, I want to say 16.
Yeah.
Your 3 years is coming up. That was your non-compete period.
Yeah.
You had a great run there.
Yes.
What's going through your mind?
Yeah.
I want to start another company, and then this is what I'm very interested in.
Yeah.
How did that morph into? Well, you wanted to be an entrepreneur again.
Yeah, I wanted to be an entrepreneur again, and I was becoming fascinated by this macro trend, right? That I thought was changing the internet. I was going around to Chase and talking to people about this and so on. Not everyone knew what I was talking about. But I found this incredibly interesting. Another trend that I was observing is that in each of these different, if you look back at a macro level at payments models, okay, every payments model, the center of it is not just a way of moving money, but a set of rules that governs that transaction between two parties. Okay, so the credit card model is a model that is both a way to move money from A to B, but a whole set of rules, which primarily, by the way, protects the buyer against the seller. Chargebacks is an incredibly powerful thing in credit cards, and if you actually look at the internal operations of a credit card company, you'll see it's dominated by the chargeback experience, as well as the points experience, which is extremely friendly to the buyer and not friendly to the seller.
Sure.
If you look at the macro trends that were occurring, in payments, after 20 years of the growth of the credit card model driven by consumer interest, sellers were pushing back against both a rewards model that was so beneficial to the buyer and punitive to the seller, and also, along with it, the chargeback model. And as a result of which, you were seeing massive pushback on those models. All kinds of major merchants launched their proprietary credit card brands. PayPal, which is basically an end run on the credit card business, even though people don't realize that's what it really is, and just driving to consumers to pay and fund their accounts through ACH and so on. So this was, the big thing that was going on. So, and if you look at, macro trends, you can understand each new payment business, as effectively creating a new structure to make payments governed by a set of rules that are appropriate for the transaction in that vertical. So you can think about Airbnb as a payments business with a set of rules governing a transaction, especially appropriate for the environment that someone is purchasing untrustworthy, local inventory, Uber, so on and so on. I was just fascinated by this trend, and therefore coming up on being interested in being an entrepreneur before, I was looking for opportunities to see the relationship between this massive trend and different industry sectors. I had the opportunity to interview. I interviewed for the CEO of Angie's List, a job I did not get, thankfully, given where that company is. Ultimately, the challenges that company had before being acquired by IAC. But I looked at that company and I saw a company that was a classic old school PPC economy. And I saw everything that was broken about that model.
Let me stop you and say, when you say PPC, just to sort of try and maybe translate that is sort of what we might think about as a company that makes money off clicks and affiliate deals, basically.
Yeah.
Sending you from here to there, lead gen.
Yeah. Bloomspot says,
as opposed to a money that makes money off transactions.
It sends you over. You go, hey, I'm interested in getting a hotel or a restaurant or an airline or a blah, blah, blah. And it goes, oh, great, here's one provider. Here you go. Here's the provider. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Right? Without
click on it, I get paid, you go over there.
You go over there, and whatever experience you have over there, I'm not going to try to change that experience. You're going to shop, buy, do whatever you do in exactly the same way. And after the first moment of finding that provider, you are uninvolved. That's the PPC economy. That's Google today, right? So I saw, so that's VR. Let me go back to that's VRBO. Why did VRBO, which was the dominant force for selling like local
short stay vacation
rentals, get completely destroyed by Airbnb because they were sending people, just clicking them over on the other side. Airbnb came along and said, I'm going to own and organize that inventory and be involved in that transaction, and they crushed VRBO. It's incredible, right? So I looked at Angie's List, and I could say the same for any of these lead gen providers in the home renovation space, like Angie's List or Home Advisor, for example. And IAC has always been a big participant in the PPC economy, and said, what's their experience? Hey, here's a list of general contractors. Click on one. Good luck with that. Was that truly solving the renovation experience? Absolutely not, right? Renovation experience dominated by cost overruns, small individual providers without the benefit of technology or organized systems, fragmented experience between designers, structural engineers, general contractors, terrible experience.
Which, by the way, let me back up. Let me back you up, and so we'll back up to go forward. Two questions. One, was your interest, because it's not like you're a contractor, it's not like you've done 15 was your interest in the home renovation space sparked by that interview at Angie's List?
Yes. And by the way,
then you decided to take on maybe the most impossible hack of all of these, which is home renovations, for all the reasons you're about to get into.
Yes. And by the way, I'll just say a comment about being an entrepreneur and how you enter a space. So people go, there is this idea, okay, that an entrepreneur is supposed to start a business in the area because they have this serendipitous personal experience, right? That is not, I arrived at this through an intellectual experience of, watching these macro trends, right? And seeing how that lined up against the sector. People often say, oh, did you start a home renovation business because, you
like making porches,
right? And I said, the idea that someone walks along and slips on stairs and falls downstairs and goes, wow, I should start a stair business, is the dumbest idea in the whole.
But it does happen.
It does happen.
It does happen.
But so often.
I'll guarantee you the people who started the Sill love plants.
Yeah.
Right? They were probably out getting a plant and thought, how is this so hard?
Yeah, exactly. For entrepreneurs, absolutely, if that's how it works for you, then that's great. By the way, I'm not saying that's happening. But entrepreneurs and venture capitalists of the world, hear me now. It is not necessary for you to have this silly, terrible, magical. I had this terrible personal experience. Therefore, let's end that as a requirement for how you can look at a sector and go, God, it's incredibly clear. I should build a business in their area. And
that's guys who started Uber weren't cab drivers.
Yeah, they weren't cab drivers. So I decided to start a business in home renovation because it was a massive vertical, $125 billion, the same size as the entire U.S. enterprise software business, with no companies, no technology, and incredibly broken consumer experience. And I observed macro trends and a method of doing business that would clearly solve the problem there, rather than slipping on a banana peel, while I had a renovation. So to connect it back with these macro trends, I saw that there was an entire history of business, of verticals where people currently had these thin, review-driven layers and were just popping people over without assisting in the transaction, to someone to companies starting effectively taking responsibility for the entirety of the consumer's transaction, building a software platform that truly facilitated and organized the consumer's entire commerce experience, providing payments, and not just for the purpose of moving money from A to B, but effectively providing payments as a way of facilitating a service, saying, I'm delivering you the service, and I'm only going to charge you, and you're only going to end up with money out of your pocket if the experience is really good. Because when you own the payment, it allows you to effectively own so much more of the experience in the transaction that you build around the payment.
Well, in home renovation, there is a way, without maybe dumbing it down too much, but there is a way that payments have gone in home renovation projects for many years, which is there's an upfront down payment, there are progress payments, there is a holdback.
And it's not just the payment.
But is that somewhat mirrored at Skylight, or have you even really kind of innovated on those basic sets of rules about how the customer experiences payment?
Our proposition is we 100% guarantee that everything in your renovation will be amazing, or you don't pay. That
period. Stop.
Period. Full stop. That is our proposition. We don't consider ourselves so. What is Skylight? Skylight is a company that we call ourselves a renovation service provider. Our proposition to the customer is very simple. From the entirety of everything you need in order to have a successful renovation, from the first moment you're going, I want to do a renovation, to it being done, that includes everything: design, material selection, electrical, mechanical, plumbing, permitting, construction, etc. Our proposition to you is the entirety of everything in that experience will be delivered to you in a highly integrated, highly organized, unified package at a single price, and the entire thing will be awesome, or you don't pay.
So let's drill down on Skylight. Stepping back, what is Skylight? What's your offering? What's your proposition? What's my experience as a homeowner who's thinking about doing a renovation? I want to redo my kitchen.
Yeah, for sure. We refer to Skylight as a renovation service provider. And what that proposition is to the customer is, if you want to do a kitchen or a bathroom renovation, Skylight holds your hand and takes you right from the beginning of a customer my thought is that I would like to do a kitchen and bathroom, all the way through the entire experience, including design, material selection, structural, electrical, mechanical, permitting, construction, etc., from conception of the renovation all the way through completion, and ensures that we deliver that as one complete, organized experience that we guarantee goes right from the beginning to the end.
But you're not a general contractor. Skylight meaning. You're not a designer. So who am I dealing with as customer, as homeowner? Just sort of high level. What are those?
While we are not a designer and not a contractor, the experience that we deliver our customers wraps our partners so deeply into a completely organized experience that from the customer's experience, it is just delivered as a single consolidated organized experience.
Okay. And let's go through a renovation. I click through Skylight, I input my name, my address, I'm interested in a kitchen. What happens next?
Yeah, for sure. So you reach out to us as a Skylight, we visit your home. First I can describe this.
We meaning a designer that's part of your
a Skylight person visits your home. At a macro level, we effectively then proceed to do your renovation digitally and then recreate that digital renovation physically. What does that mean? We take a scan of your home upon first visit, which creates a digital model of your home. We use an application to find out what you are interested in your renovation. We have a bunch of standard templates around great, we have 6 different kitchen designs, 6 different bathroom designs, an application for you to effectively, in an organized way, specify everything that you want. Whether it's in your kitchen, first, the overall look and feel of your kitchen, the layout of your kitchen, right down to your backsplash and your countertops and your flooring and your hardware and your application, but in a super organized way, which gives you both a ton of consumer choice, but also not just having to fish in an open ocean around all those choices. We've effectively given you choice, but a good logical set of choices that represent the things that would be logically most interesting for you. We then take the customer into an experience that we call rapid design, which is effectively for $100 and in 1 week, totally design your renovation. We effectively give you the same service that you would go and enter into an agreement with an architect and pay $25,000. We deliver to you in a week for $100. So within 2 days, we send you a visualization of a first cut of exactly the kind of style and look and feel and layout that you've specified in the home in a beautiful, fully 3D rendered, effectively photographic experience of your home, set in your actual home from the model that we built. That's inclusive of all the materials that would be appropriate for doing that renovation, and a budget, which is one single number to effectively take that renovation from inception all the way to the end, that under no circumstances, unless you change what you want, changes. So we give you a number and say, in order to deliver you this amazing kitchen that we visualized for you in a day and a half, this is the number, let's say $50,000. And it doesn't matter whether we find out that that wall that you're taking down requires more or less, a whole bunch of structural work, or whether later in the process we discover that you have asbestos under your floor, or lead paint, or we open up your bathroom and there's dry rot in your shower pan, or whether we open up your wall and there's structural weakness, or whether it turns out that your appliances in your kitchen are not fed from a single circuit, and therefore for permitting reasons we need to effectively modify that, or whether there's corrosion in your pipes, or whether your HVAC vents into your bathroom or closet. No matter what, you get one number, and separate from you changing renovation, you get a completed 100% great experience, guaranteed at quality standards, and not $1 more than that leaves your bank account.
Which is mind-blowing to anyone who's ever done a renovation. 2 questions. One, presumably for $100, you had a lot of tire kickers. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, I wouldn't mind seeing what a couple of my bathrooms would look like.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you, that's question 1. And then question 2 is, how are you able to deal with all those variables you just listed, which are the types of things that will totally throw off a renovation? You obviously do a site visit, but within a week, how are you possibly able to kind of control for all those variables? What's...
Yeah, probabilistically.
Okay.
So, that's...
Is that the answer to both questions?
Yes, probabilistically. At the formation of Skylight, we went out to 40 general contractors and we got data on the frequency of a lot of the events that I just described were referred to as unforeseen site conditions. Although not all, some of them are also like structural issues or things that come up during the detailed design phase and permitting phase. But we've just learned from and gathered data around these events to allow us to predict them well enough that we feel comfortable taking that risk. And on one level, we are to some degree have an element of being an insurance company.
Well, and how does that work, given that the contractors that you're working with aren't necessarily, like, you've got to ultimately pay them, so you lose some, presumably if the contractor has to do a week more work than they thought.
Sometimes we lose money, sometimes we make money.
Okay. How do you do customer acquisition?
Given my background at Yahoo and some of the previous discussion that we've had on this podcast, I've been focusing on digital customer acquisition for a long, long time. So we're very good at acquiring customers from digital channels in a whole bunch of different ways. Our lead value proposition that we advertise, which is if anything goes wrong, we pay the difference, makes an incredibly powerful ad. Mm-hmm. And with incredible click-throughs. We do a lot of core Google search advertising because, as per previous discussion, this actually is a vertical where it's an intent-based vertical. Generally, the customers we're selling to for now are people that have decided that they want renovations. We do think that our proposition of being able to create an amazing design for customers incredibly cheaply and simply is an extremely powerful one. And we can imagine, and the fact that we're building a system that you could refer to as a semi-automated architect, or ultimately an automated architect, will ultimately allow us to allow any person at almost no cost to envision and price their ideal renovation with almost no effort and cost. We think is incredibly powerful and is ultimately where we are going.
And who are your customers? They're not somebody with a Classic 7 in New York City apartment, I assume, just given the complexities of approvals and board approvals and so on and so forth. What are you finding in terms of, maybe geographically, demographically, from an income perspective, the types of renovations? Is it just kitchen and bathroom?
Yeah, okay, we are. So first we're just serving the Bay Area.
Oh, you are? Okay.
We're serving just the Bay Area right now, although we'll be expanding beyond that. And the model's clearly set up to be anywhere. We think about ourselves as Starbucks, like Starbucks for home renovation. And what do I mean by that? Which is that a organized, high service experience sold into the mass market. And you see this all the time with more and more products, which are mass market products, but are sold with much higher design standards and quality standards that have been typically sold into the mass market.
That is really one of the key direct-to-consumer. LA, obviously, with luggage. That is,
So that's how we're constructed. And our as a result of the scale and organization, our prices are going from average market prices to below average market prices. We're still not at the price that if you're willing to use a contractor that's not going to do permitting, for example, you can get a job that's cheaper than us. But we are getting to really competitive pricing, but are really very, very high levels of quality of service and demand. I would say that our product is probably not, it's not focused on the extreme high-end consumer that wants a celebrity architect to come to their home and work with them at their home in an interactive experience with a super high-end architect to come up with very, very esoteric design. We think our design are amazing, but we're not that experience. We're for people that want to get really good quality design. By the way, tailored design. We're not. We start with templates, but then we really work with the consumer to tailor to exactly the experience that they want. But we're more likely for the Starbucks consumer rather than the consumer that wants the finest Colombian coffee shipped to their home. And like Starbucks, you walk into Starbucks and they've got a lot of choices there. Not an infinite set of choices, but a lot of choices. And that's how we think about our product, which is organized enough to allow us to deliver a really consistent, high quality, choice-oriented experience, but not so many infinite world of choice. We're not shipping specialized materials in from Africa such that we can deliver this experience to consumers with sort of consistency and really attractive prices.
What's been the most challenging, or let me try and put it a different way. As you were putting the pieces together, to be able to go out and launch this business, in your build phase, in your post-funding, pre-launch, going out and doing your first renovation, what did you find most challenging in putting this together? Because really, From a standing start, you would have thought this was a very, very difficult industry to go digitally native with.
Yeah.
What was it? Industry resistance? Was it trade resistance? Was it the logistics? Was it these pre-existing site conditions are going to kill me? What were some of the things that you're most proud of having hacked and cracked and being able to figure out?
Yeah. At the first blush, the process of doing a renovation for any given kitchen and bathroom might appear to be completely unique, right? To take the customer through all the different steps to get that done. In reality, they all follow exactly, they can be managed to follow a very precise, organized process every single time. The biggest challenge we've had is to come up with a structure in order to take each one of those and turn them into the same organized process that we can follow each time. Also knowing what jobs we shouldn't do that would otherwise take us out of that, but provided that we stay within that, be able to take the consumer through an incredibly organized, repeatable, efficient, simple process to go through the initial design, the more detailed design, the selection of the core materials, the design of the cabinetry, the kitchen cabinetry, the finalization of all materials in the home, the application for the HOA permit, the application for the permit process, completion of structural engineering, ordering and material logistics, organizing the in-home experience for the actual construction. In other words, like how you set up the home, how you set up the homeowner in order to have a makeshift kitchen and so on, and organize their experience. Organizing access to the home by the contractor that we now do through a lockbox. Communication to the homeowner, communication to the homeowner through the experience. And then the final component is the establishment of concrete construction quality standards that we specify that every one of our kitchen and bathrooms live up to. Monitoring and enforcing those such that at the end of this experience, we deliver to the customer an absolutely trustworthy and consistent outcome.
How do you deal with, and who deals with things like the oven arrives, the homeowner doesn't like the color, or it's the wrong fit? Is that Skylight, or is that the contractor's problem, or is there maybe even a line between that? What is that?
Everything is Skylight's problem.
Okay. So you're dealing with the distributor. You're dealing with the Wolf distributor to say, hey, you delivered a wrong one. I need it by tomorrow. So somebody at Skylight's dealing with that issue. You take that out of the hands of the local contractors. You solve that.
We've had a bunch of homeowners that have gone on vacation, and when they've come back, their renovation is perfect, and that's Skylight's problem. It's just that simple.
Yeah.
Everything, the homeowner is not reliant. Everything is Skylight's problem, and we, with no homeowner involvement, deliver perfection. Period.
Okay. Pretty incredible proposition.
Yeah.
How's the business doing? What do you find? What are your biggest challenges going forward? Do you have so much inbound that it's starting to be a fire hose? What's the scale?
Yeah, for sure. By the way, I'll just follow up on that.
Yeah.
I'll just follow up on that experience. What I just said. With homeowners on vacation, they just received an email indicating that that while they were on vacation, it had been discovered that their entire bathroom had been rotted out. It had been discovered. It had been identified. A fix had been designed, a fix had been implemented and paid for, and we just let them know that happened. Right? A customer did in one case we did have in a bathroom in a powder room, some of the wallpaper was not evenly set. We identified that because we take photographs of each of the steps. We just identified to the homeowner. We sent the homeowner an email. It's been identified that your wallpaper is not met Skylight's design standards and quality standards. This is being fixed. Our apology, in order to fix this, your renovation is going to take an additional 10 days. But all you need to know is that this will be delivered.
Yeah. How is the business scaling?
Yeah. For us, we still have, manual components. So we are not gated by access to customers. We're gated. Our flow of customers is effectively infinite. We're gated by our ability to consistently deliver that experience. And there's still manual components in delivering that experience. And we have to have operators that are trained within our system to work effectively in order to deliver that. And we need to add those people into our business and make sure that they're ready to deliver. And that's what we do. That's the gate to our ability to be able to expand the business. And we recently did an additional financing round, and that's what we're doing right now, which is adding people, training them up, continuing to refine the efficiencies of our process to deliver.
I mean, that's a great problem to have.
Yeah.
You got no problem on the inbound business side. You just got to manage that scaling, and that's something that presumably you've got experience with. Your team has experience with. Let's talk a little bit about the competitive, your competitive landscape. Another company out there is Pro.com, also trying to, in effect, take the home renovation experience online. How are you guys different? How are you the same? How do you see that? How do you see this construction tech, if you will, home renovation tech space growing, and how do you assess the field?
Yeah. So Pro.com recently did a financing round. Congratulations to them. That's great. Pro.com is a general contractor. They're a general contractor, which is great. The only difference, I think, between a normal general contractor and Pro.com is they're a general contractor that's serving multiple different cities and raised venture capital. They are hiring full-time, site supervisors and general contractors and so on. They are not seeking to deliver like an integrated renovation experience, including design. And for us, to be able they're seeking to do the general contracting part, and they're working with existing architects and designers, often in the traditional way where you go off to an architect. That architect does a design for, does your architecture. Then you go, you run a bid.
And they're one of the bidders.
Okay. And therefore, you have one person that's done your design, another person that's your general contractor in that traditional mode, right? In that traditional style. We're trying to create a different model, an integrated renovation service provider. I can see the value in what they're doing, and that's great. I'm sure that by being a larger general contractor with people in multiple cities, they're able to, control for quality and sort of build a role. And even the name of their organization, Pro.com, implies that, right? Yeah. That they're general contractors.
That they're not giving the 360 experience.
Yeah. I mean, we're a designer, right? Skylight is a designer as well as a builder.
Yeah.
And therefore, we have design standards. Our renovations even use similar sets of materials and so on. I mean, we're a renovation.
So that's really a wildly different proposition.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
And I think by the way, we only do, because we're delivering that experience, we do certain types of things and don't do anything, because we don't work with third-party designers and architects. We are that experience.
Why just kitchens and bathrooms?
We feel that kitchens and bathrooms is a large part of the market. It's also an area where all of the technology we built in order to generate a really effective, effectively generate a really effective design for the customer works best when we focus on certain topics and repeat those over and over and over again. And once again, we allow our customers to modify those, but we have just built tons of expertise around kitchen and bathroom design, which is a very specific area, large area, but we've gotten really, really good at that and understanding, delivering that to the customer. And by staying focused on that, we are not a generalist general contractor. We are a deliverer of amazing kitchens and bathrooms. And those are two very different things.
What could be next for Skylight? Would it be, how, and maybe you're not focused on this, I mean, you want to scale your core business right now, obviously, but, and you're going to expand geographically. Are there other things you could imagine adding, other layers you could imagine adding, like basements or additions or, you know, maybe building the whole home? What might be out there?
You know, first, you know, the kitchen and bathroom market is, you know, a very large, you know, if you look at the total $125 billion, you know, new homes is only about a third of that market. So, you know, the market is massive, just staying in the renovation space that we're in, where kitchen and bathrooms are a very large portion of that. We made additions is the next thing that is, you know, we like areas where the integration of the design and the construction and the materials all in one package are very, very important, right? And kitchen and bathrooms, which are extremely materials and design centric, right? As opposed to like fixing your foundations, right? So we like areas where the integrated package is most meaningful. The additions can be like that because additions are usually often adding a kitchen, or, you know, extending your kitchen into an additional footprint outside of the space and so on. So the addition would be the most logical thing. I think it'll be a long time before we seek building a brand new home because, you know, they're the existing architectural, you know, in the United States, for kitchens and bathrooms, you know, 93% of kitchens and bathrooms in the United States are done just by general contractors without the assistance of an architect or designer. So one thing that we're doing is addressing that's not true around Europe, by the way, for example, where people doing kitchens and bathrooms almost always use architects and designers. And effectively, we are reinserting high quality design in the kitchen and bathroom renovation experience where it is absent here in the United States.
But within a templatized kind of a workflow.
Yeah.
And which is in some ways the only way you can do it and still be economical.
Yeah. And the way that I think about it is we leverage templates so we can quickly get to the ideal design for the customer, not to constrain the customer to those templates. So
I think it's brilliant. I mean, my guess is, well, my guess, but you know, the idea of templates. If I'm a homeowner looking to do a kitchen or bathroom, I may not even know I want or need templates, but presented with templates, it makes the process so much more happy.
It says like, hey, here are, you know, 10 amazing versions. And then 10 amazing versions, and customers go like, wow, that's an amazing.
Each one looks beautiful.
That's an amazing place.
Right.
Very often, our customers will take a few elements, or maybe more if they choose, and we have. I'll give you an example. If you take a kitchen and you modify the backsplash, the countertop, and the flooring, right? Even though in that kitchen there are probably 100 choices that need to be made. But you know, does the consumer really want to think through every single of those choices? If the consumer says, hey, you know, those 3 elements that are driving the aesthetics, like I want it to be like this but warmer, we have, you know, we have a catalog of additional elements of the best, most economical, highest quality, most usable materials that are alternatives to those, and say, hey, here are 15 alternatives. How can we match and organize each of them in order for the 3 most critical elements, you know, the backsplash, the countertop, and the flooring, to get exactly the feel you want? That's still gone massively fast and efficient relative to starting from scratch with nothing, which is a baffling experience considering, you know, great, beautiful kitchens and bathrooms have been done before.
Are you seeing any unfair advantage on pricing with respect to supplies and materials?
Yes. So without going into the details, we would already be, for major cabinetry providers, we're told that we are already one of the top buyers of cabinetry. And we are becoming a significant purchaser of materials, you know, already, considering that actually Skylight purchases the materials on the customer's behalf in order to organize the logistics, because once again, homeowner can be on vacation during this entire process. So we are a major materials buyer and cabinetry provider already, and we get benefits from that.
Did you see that coming?
We thought that was going to be a real advantage.
Yeah, that's interesting. Looking at just sort of a segue to sort of think about wrapping things up. How do you sort of see yourself further innovating? What's on the product roadmap for you guys?
Yeah, for sure. First, we believe in amazing design. So we will continue to innovate on raw design. We are working with some of the top architects in San Francisco on the most contemporary elements of amazing bathroom design, getting them as consultants. And we are doing certain projects in conjunction with top-end, extremely well-known architects to supplement our products. So we are determined to be the best designer of kitchens and bathrooms in the world, and that includes elegance, functionality, usability, etc. So that's just critically important to us. We also continue to want to use our buying power and scale to be the best and near cheapest provider. Amazon provides the highest level of service at the most competitive prices, and that's how we think about it. We are not a premium. We believe we're a premium service, but we are not premium priced, and we intend to make amazing home renovation in kitchens and bathrooms available at incredibly economic prices to everyone. So that's a major focus of our business too.
It's interesting. We had on Christiane Lemieux on this podcast, and she's the founder and CEO of The Inside, which is a home furnishings, digitally native home furnishings brand, which is made to order custom. And there are a lot of competitors for that business. Yeah. There are Amazon Home, just to name one, and we talked about how she sees that field, and one of the things we talked about on that show, on that podcast, which is similar, is that Christiane's view is one of the ways I'm going to win is on being a great designer. Let's not lose sight of the fact that while maybe we are applying all this internet learning and these macro trends, and we're doing this hack of let's also remember that these are people's homes, and they want them to be beautiful, and they want to be proud of them. Yeah. And that's sort of something that's coming through, that you're that's front and center. Yeah. As you would imagine it would be for a home renovation business. You want to be great designers. Yeah, we do stuff to look beautiful.
We do consider ourselves, a design company. And by the way, the company was started on a partnership between a group of people that were technologists and product and business builders, together with 5 architects, designers, and general contractors working, brainstorming, in collaboration. So we think of ourselves at the intersection between technology, construction, and design.
Listen, that's a great place to leave off. This has been a fascinating conversation. I thank you for coming in, and we look forward to following the progress. Thanks, Jasper.
Thank you.
That's a wrap on this episode of The Medium Rules with Alan Baldachin. For more information, go to our website at www.hballp.com. And you can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And don't forget to rate us on Apple Podcasts.